Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Faithfully Yours. Faithfully Yours is a Dutch-Belgian murder mystery that tells the story of Bodil, a judge who is seemingly happily married, but instead engages in various affairs at a family cottage away from the city. She regularly conspires with her best friend Isabel to take breaks from their respective families so that they can engage in hedonism. On one occasion, Bodil discovers Isabel has been killed by an unknown assassin, which leads to Bodil's web of lies between the two families being unveiled. She must do her best to maintain her innocence amid growing suspicion of her actions while trying to find out who killed Isabel. This feels like one of those slow burn mystery thrillers that I really should have liked, but for some reason it didn't fully click with me. It still does a good job with telling a suspenseful story and keeping one guessing all the way to the end, but the bland characters and strange narrative decisions kept me from appreciating it more. It was interesting to see Bodil as the main character of this movie, in that she does bad things and has to find a way to get out of her own situation while figuring out someone else's. There's a lot of moving parts she's involved with in the story, so it was intriguing to see her navigate her way through all the plot threads that come her way. Personality-wise, she doesn't have that much going for her, but the story is captivating enough that the shortcomings behind her performance are offset a bit. It's ironic to see someone like a judge who is so responsible for upholding the truth to weave so many lies to try and get away with what she wants, and it's fun to see the main story change as her own stories do. Where the movie starts to lose me a bit is with the rest of the characters. The relationship between Bodil and her friend Isabel wasn't convincing for me. Bodil never seems all that devastated by the fact that her friend is dead, and once again Isabel is, or was, fairly dull as a character like Bodil, which kind of hampers the emotional weight of the story. And their respective husbands don't fare that much better either. Neither Milan or Luke do all that much except provide potential clues or red herrings to throw off the mystery. So while it is nice that they have some purpose behind them in terms of narrative, it's disappointing to see them lack so much in memorability. The mystery revolving around the story is definitely the movie's biggest saving grace, which I found myself a bit surprised by considering how flat the characters were. The movie doesn't immediately dive into the murder right away, instead giving time for things to marinate and build tension. This helped me become more immersed in the story, as the movie explains what happens in the story by showing instead of telling. The little acts of deception from Bodil and Isabel's actions added up over time and increasingly drew my attention to see where things would end up. Things get even more intense once the actual murder happens. The narrative that Bodil and Isabel conjured up falls apart, which leaves Bodil trying and failing to cover her tracks while trying to stay on top of someone else's tracks. Things snowball more and more out of control as events progress, and it's fascinating to see. The clues behind the mystery are revealed in a way that feels natural. Sometimes they're revealed through characters' words, while other times they're discovered by pure luck. There's a nice variety behind them, and they're always unveiled at just the right time to keep the pacing going, which keeps things fresh and exciting. This being said, the whole aspect surrounding the lies that Bodil tells to others gets weaker as the story moves along. While it starts off strong as she finds herself being questioned by her husband, Isabel's husband, and the police on top of it all, it feels like at a certain point that people just stop caring about the lies she tells. There just doesn't seem to be any real consequences in place for her duplicitous behavior, which I feel is a missed opportunity to explore how much her character takes advantage of the truth and how this can come back to bite her later on. It does happen to a certain extent, but not as much as it could have. What affected my enjoyment of this movie the most was how certain narrative decisions were made that for me personally just felt strange in their execution. The weird things begin almost as soon as the movie starts, with the dog somehow getting into Bodil's cottage where Isabel's body was and getting blood all over it, which is Bodil's cue to know that something is wrong. There's also the police showing a violent photo of Isabel's dead body to her loved ones without warning, or how Isabel's husband randomly reveals he had a tracker placed on her phone halfway through the movie, yet completely went along with Bodil's lies beforehand. These moments weren't everywhere, but every now and then, something bizarre happened that took me out of the story. The aesthetic presentation of the movie itself remains engrossing enough that some of the sillier stuff in the story is somewhat mitigated. The beautiful cinematography and suspenseful soundtrack add to the dark mood that the mystery presents, and contribute to being a more immersive experience. Again, I was taken aback by how invested I was in the story, in spite of how boring the characters were. Even though it is a fairly typical whodunit mystery, it never feels obvious as to who is responsible for the murder. With how well paced and varied the clues were, I genuinely had no idea who the killer was, and I enjoyed being kept on my toes in this sense. But like I also said, the story loses steam after a while and gets caught in some unusual plot points. One thing that did add some dramatic intrigue was the more erotic elements, which when watching the story make sense in how they add to the mystery, but there were also some pretty weird dramatic parts to them, especially the whole lovey-dovey angle with Bodil's lover, Michael. The payoff behind the ending is okay for what it is. The killer's identity reveal is fine when everything is taken into consideration, but the conclusion following this reveal left a lot to be desired for me. It felt too goofy to be taken seriously, and also tries to wrap up everything too neatly in too short a time frame. The main theme behind the movie can be interpreted as being how much lies can hurt people the longer they're perpetuated, to the point where the liar themselves only believe the lies. The idea behind it makes sense, and it starts off well enough, but after a while it loses focus, which is a shame considering how well it holds up as a mystery in general. Overall, Faithfully Yours is an average murder mystery flick that starts off strong, but gets weaker the longer it goes on. If you like murder mysteries with the classic whodunit format and can tolerate bland characters and weird story decisions, you might enjoy watching this. The movie doesn't always stay faithful to its ideas, but when it does, it's a lot of fun to watch, and the overall mystery is engaging enough on its own merits that it's quite entertaining, even if the thrills are occasionally disrupted here and there. What did you think about this movie? Did you like the pacing behind its mystery, or did you find it predictable and boring? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Faithfully Yours. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Polish drama, Fanfic. Bye bye!